Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on stress management, real tools for work and life balance, presented by our sponsor, Heffernan. We're so happy you can join us. My name is Deb Beto, and I will be your moderator today and be monitoring questions you may have during the session. Before we open up the session, let's review a couple of key items. All of the webinar materials we discuss can be found at aspenrmg.com/Heffernan webinars. I will be sharing this URL in a follow-up email, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend leaving the presentation and logging back in. If you have audio difficulties or a telephone line goes dead during the call, hang up and call back again to the same number. If all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Feel free to ask questions or provide feedback by using the chat box during the webinar. If you are using a tablet, you may need to tap on the screen for the options bar to appear, and then you can select the appropriate option. We may not respond immediately, but we will work your questions or feedback into the end of the presentation. We will be online afterwards to respond, or we may follow up in an email if we run completely out of time. You may also email us at moderator@aspenrmg.com for up to 48 hours after the webinar. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are very much encouraged throughout, and the presenter will be answering questions at the end. And lastly, we have a number of webinars upcoming covering a variety of topics, including those listed at the Heffernan webinar website. In addition, we offer the mandatory Preventing Harassment training in English 3 times a year. With that, let's begin today's webinar, Stress Management, Real Tools for Work and Life Balance. I'm going to turn the presentation over to our presenter, and I will give you an introduction. Today's interactive session will be facilitated by Dr. Steve Albrecht. Dr. Steve Albrecht is one of the country's leading experts on workplace violence. In 1994, he co-wrote Ticking Bombs, one of the first books on this subject. Since then, he has continued to write, speak, and train on workplace and school violence prevention, the value of threat assessment teams, and safety and security of all employees. His clients include Boeing, Nike, Halliburton, 120 California cities, and all 58 California counties. His background includes his work for 15 years as a police officer with San Diego Police Department. He holds a doctorate in business administration, an MA in security management, a BA in English, and a BS in psychology. He is board certified in HR, security management, employee coaching, and threat management. He has written 17 books on business, security, and law enforcement subjects. So Dr. Steve, I'm going to start with some polling questions for our audience, and let's get our audience working here. So good stress is known as eustress, and bad stress is known as distress. So audience members, if you can please answer this question, and then we will let you know how you voted here. So we've got only about 60% voting so far. If we can get everybody to start voting. We only have 3 polling questions, and then Dr. Steve will get right into the presentation. All right, so 80% say true and 20% say false. So Dr. Steve, you want to let us in on the answer to this one?
So that is true. Eustress, EU-stress is good stress, and distress is bad stress. So the 80%, good job.
Excellent. All right, let's go to the next polling question. Okay. A leading cause of job burnout is getting too much praise from your boss or coworkers. Again, we have a true-false scenario here, and we'll get everybody's vote in. You're going a little quicker this time, everybody. That's good. We're getting into the groove of things here this morning. So, Dr. Steve, we've got 7% say true and 93% say false.
Well, that better be 100%, because praise is what most employees don't get enough of and what they need to help them do their job. And burnout, one of the connections is that you don't feel appreciated or valued or supported in what you do. So praise is a big part of that.
Okay. And our last polling question. Sleep, diet, exercise, meditation, breath control, and a positive attitude are all connected to managing your stress level. Again, true, false. We've got about 50% of the people voted, so we're making some good progress here. And I'm proud to say that this time they say it's 100% true.
Great. So everybody got that one perfectly, and that was kind of a setup question for what we're going to be talking about. So thanks everybody for your time and attention today. We'll spend a short hour together. Thanks to my friends at Aspen Risk Management Group, especially to Kathy Marks and to Steve, and also to Heffernan for sponsoring our conversation today. You will be able to see the slides later on in kind of a downloaded version, which will be useful for you as kind of homework to take back and think about the things that we talk about today. One of the benefits of my approach is I talk pretty quickly, so we cover a lot of things in a short period of time. That's also a sin, is which I talk pretty quickly, and so that's one of the issues that I've always worked on in my webinars, which is I talk fast. I'll do the best I can to modulate my speed for you. But one of the biggest things about stress management for me is, and I've taught this program, some version of it, for 25 years, is that the people who are online with us today probably don't need it as much as the people who are not online. And oftentimes when I teach the live version of this program, the people that are in the room don't need it as much as the people who aren't in the room, if that makes sense to you. So one of the challenges we face with this subject is it's difficult for me, sitting where I am, to know what stresses you. I'm not a big fan of roller coasters and scary movies and ocean cruises and things like that. Other people love all that kind of stuff and go all the time. So things that stress you out don't stress me, and vice versa. So it's a very individual concern for a lot of people. Many of us are wired differently for responses to things that are quite stressful for some people, not stressful at all for others. So it is not beholding to me to be able to tell you how to manage your life. What I am trying to give you is a set of tools for your toolkit to help you with the common stressors personally and professionally that most of us face. And I'm going to give you an acronym today called BREADS, B-R-E-A-D-S, and that acronym will cover the most critical tools for stress management. So if you can really dial down and think about how you can improve each of those characteristics within the BREADS acronym, you'll be way ahead of the game. So keep the slides for review, and we're ready to get rolling and talk about this conversation. The other part I want you to think about is we're going to do a little kind of a mini relaxation exercise at the end of our conversation here. Think about a couple of things before we get to that. One is a color that you associate with stress and stress management. So associate a color that you could think of for relaxation, a color that you see in your mind. It may be very vivid and sharp, or it may be quite kind of fuzzy, but associate a color that you would attach to relaxation. The second thing is think of a private getaway place. And the private getaway place is some place you can go inside your mind for a short period of time, for the 5 minutes that we'll do the exercise. That's peaceful, it's safe, it's comfortable, nothing bad's ever happened there, nothing bad will ever happen there. Maybe it's a place you've been as a child or as an adult. It's a place you've been on vacation. It's a place that does not exist in the real world, but you wish it did. Think about where you would be in that private getaway place. The third part is think about how we breathe. And we breathe, obviously, in and out. And inside those in and out breaths, we have transitions. So one of the steps towards breath-based relaxation, which is what most meditation these days is all about focusing on the breath, is looking at those transitions. So we inhale, there's a little teeny pause, and the transition to your exhale. Then there's a little teeny pause at the bottom of the exhale, and then you start your next inhalation. One way to focus on breath-based meditation or breath-based kind of relaxation exercise is just focus on those pauses. Focus on those little transitions between the inhale and the exhale to the inhale. So we'll talk about that as we go forward. So think about a color you associate with relaxation. Think about a private getaway place. Think about these transitions for how we breathe. I flew here yesterday on Southwest Airlines to get from where I am in Springfield, Missouri to California and come into San Diego. It was 5 degrees in Springfield and it was 75 here, so that's quite nice. And I think about why we go to training. We go to training to change behavior. And I flew in on Southwest Airlines from Kansas City to here, and no issues on the flight, nothing like this that you see on the screen. This is a Southwest Airlines plane that had a medical emergency where a woman was killed when the engine exploded and there was a piece of shrapnel that struck her, and just a horrible situation. So we look at the photograph here and you think about why you attend training, why you do things like this online or face-to-face, and we go to training to change behavior. And especially in this type of situation, we respond to our behaviors under stress and how we've been told or how we've been programmed or how we thought to react. Everybody in this photograph has their masks on the wrong way. If you've flown on an airplane within the last couple of years, they've not changed the dynamic for that. It's put the mask over your nose and mouth and breathe normally. Well, nobody in this photograph is doing that. In this highly stressful situation, they've all got their masks on wrong. So think about how you respond to situations under stress. Some people get kind of panicky, some people get anxious, some people get angry, some people get fearful, some people forget even the most simple things. And even in stressful situations, oftentimes we can forget our own address, we can forget our own telephone number or other people's telephone numbers, things like that in stressful situations. So one of the values of managing stress in your personal life is, at least it's in certain situations where you need to respond in an emergency, you know what to do. And so we think about the value of stress as kind of being an igniter for people to get them to pay attention to very critical things and to do the right thing and to be heroic or brave in certain situations. But oftentimes life is not that complicated. Just think about how you attend training programs like this so that you change your behavior under stress or you change your behavior about stress. This photograph here is called a fractal, and a fractal is something that occurs in nature or could be created by somebody in a laboratory condition that they make artificial diamonds or artificial snowflakes or things like that, or whether they use these types of patterns. And these patterns occur in nature, in flowers and in trees and in all kinds of beautiful things that we see around the world. So this is a picture of fractals, and a German study was done that suggests that if you look at fractals, it lowers your blood pressure, lowers your pulse rate. So they did a study where they had people look at these types of pictures for just a short period of time each day and actually lowered their stress level. You can see a parallel to this with playing with a dog or watching fish. And I have a fish tank in my office and I watch the fish swim by, and it's very peaceful, and then I get back to work. So when you think about little things that you can do to manage stress, just download on Google somewhere, a Google image, some fractal photographs or fractal images that you like. It's F-R-A-C-T-A-L, fractals. And put those on your screensavers, put those on your phone, take a couple of photographs which you leave on your phone, and you can look at, and actually lowers your stress level to look at beautiful things in nature. So Siddhartha was the founder of Indian Buddhism, and he said, let us be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us be thankful. I like a little sarcasm in my Buddhists, and I think that this quote here reminds me of not taking things obviously too seriously in life. And one of the reasons that we have stress is because we really tend to get obsessively focused on the little things, and we quit doing what the Buddhists suggest is to live in the moment. So I'll talk a little bit about Zen moments, and you don't have to be a Buddhist to do this. No shaving of your head or putting on orange robes or anything like that. Don't have to move to Tibet. But oftentimes we think about the moment that we're in as being negative, or the moment that we're in as stressful, and oftentimes we forget to see some of the good that's happening. For example, you're in traffic and you're kind of fussing about how you're going to be late to work, and you're stuck in traffic, and why won't these people move out of the way, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the Zen moment for traffic is, I'm sitting in my car, which I've paid for, and it's mine. There's nobody else here, so it's quiet. It's my own time. I can listen to the music that I want to hear. I can sing along in the car if I want to. I can sit quietly and listen to nothing. I can have my coffee. It's all good. So it's easy sometimes to get focused, especially in stressful situations or in situations that make us anxious, on the bigger picture of what's wrong, rather than focusing on the good things, which are what's good about this particular moment. Sorry. So some of you may not like to wash dishes in your home. And so you're standing at the counter washing dishes and you say, this is horrible. I have to wash dishes. I hate doing this. It's a big mess. The kitchen's a mess. What's the Zen moment in that? Well, the water's warm. The soap bubbles are kind of cool to look at. You probably just finished eating a nice meal with your family and friends or whoever, and it's all good. So oftentimes I like to look at how we get away from focusing on the negative all the time, and we're going to talk about attitude as part of stress management, instead of saying what's good about this particular moment. Not every moment is certainly awesome in life, but some of them are pretty good. So you say to yourself, well, what's good about my saintly grandmother passing away from cancer in hospice care? And you say, well, she lived a great life and people loved her, and she was appreciated and loved and valued right up to the end of her days, and she was cared and comforted for all the way through until she passed away. I mean, I think you have to look at certain even horrible situations like that and find out what the little small piece of good is. I think one of the problems in our society these days, we don't focus too much on what's good. We focus on the negative a lot. We focus a lot on sort of the biggest problem inside the issue rather than what might be the silver lining around that. Now, I'm not a guy, if you heard my bio, that kind of believes in puppies and unicorns and rainbows. I don't see a big pile of horse poop in the middle of the field and dig around and look for the pony. I have lived a life which has been stressful and difficult in a lot of respects, but I do have this sense that there's a lot of good out there and we need to spend more time finding it. So this is a picture of a Zen garden in Japan, and I use this in conversation when I have sometimes with police officers where we do stress training for cops and firefighters, and we suggest that, you know, they have to find something beautiful or peaceful in their lives after they do their work, because sometimes it's really easy to get focused on what's horrible when going to firefighting calls and police calls and things like that, or ambulance calls where those folks deal with really a difficult part of our life where people are having their worst moment when they finally show up to try to save their lives or to rescue the situation. So I always think about, in Japan, the cops have two briefings, two lineups, two roll calls, one in the beginning of their shift where they talk about the stuff the cops talk about, and then one at the end where they come back in and say, let's talk about what happened out there in the field during your time when you were working. So think about that for your own life, and say, you know, we have a lot of meetings and conversations and discussions about stuff at work, and oftentimes we're in this sort of stressful situation all the way until we get home. And think about how you can transition when you're driving home or any way that you get home, whether it's, you know, a bus or a cab or Uber or a train or whatever, or carpool, that you spend some time in your car or in your transition from work to home thinking about what went well during the day and what didn't go so well, and transitioning from the work space that you were in to the life space where you need to go home. Think about one of the problems that we have in our stressful work world is that people come home and they go sit in the magic chair. And the magic chair is the recliner or the couch or that part of your house where you sort of collapse and sit there, maybe with a cocktail, maybe with the TV remote in your hand, and you sort of zone out. You watch the news or you watch evening shows or whatever, and you kind of sit in that coma in the magic chair. And the magic chair is called the magic chair because it doesn't make any demands on you. It doesn't stress you out in any way. One of the problems of the magic chair is that people come over to you and want to engage. So your family says, let's go walk the dog, or let's go get some Chinese food, and you say the normal thing that a lot of people say sitting in the magic chair, which is, leave me alone. I'm tired, I had a long day, I'm stressed out, I just want to sit here and chill, I just want to sit here and veg, leave me alone. The problem is the magic chair can create divorces, the magic chair is not good for your kids, and the magic chair is not good for your physical health, because it's easy to go sit in the magic chair for 4 and 5 and 6 hours and not realize that you've been sitting in the magic chair and life is moving on without you. So one of my prescriptions for wanting to sit in the magic chair is when people in your family come over to engage, the answer is yes, let's go walk the dog, yes, let's go get some Chinese food and get out of the magic chair. If you live by yourself, it's easy to get stuck in the magic chair for a long time. Think about what you can do to change that sort of dynamic so the magic chair doesn't become this place where you feel sort of trapped when you've had a really stressful day. So one of my colleagues is a psychologist in San Diego, a guy named Brian Allman, A-L-M-A-N. Brian's a great guy. He's up in Carlsbad, Leucadia area for you North County people that know California. And he talks about successful people have one foot in the present and one foot in the future. And he says that miserable people have one foot in the present and the other foot stuck in the past. So think about your own perspective. One of the ways that we sort of make stress worse in our lives is that we focus too much on the past. And we're stuck in horrible relationships, horrible conversations, horrible experiences or episodes, which really sort of ruined our day, ruined our month, ruined our year. Toxic relationships with people in our friends and family, toxic relationships in our personal and professional lives, things like that. People that are most successful have one foot in the present, what am I going to do right now, and then one foot in the future, which is what am I going to go and do. Uncomfortable, miserable, unhappy, anxious people tend to have one foot in the present and the other foot stuck firmly in the past. I think it's important to think about in our world the difference between pleasure versus happiness. Things that give you pleasure maybe something that you buy or something that you eat or some event that you go to, you go see a concert or something like that, that's great. But happiness is sort of a long-term issue. Happiness is a choice that you make, a choice in your interactions with people, a choice in your career, a choice in your personal and professional relationships. And I think sometimes we focus in our world too much on pleasure to take us out of sort of our stress modality, not enough on happiness. Another big factor for me for stress management is positive self-talk. and you think about all the voices that you hear during the day, the one that you listen to the most is your own. So if you say things like, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, I'm never going to get promoted, I'm never going to get ahead, I'm never going to find someone who will love me, I'm never going to get in shape, whatever it happens to be, those are the voices that you hear most often. So successful people, especially when it comes to stress management, have learned to focus on positive self-talk. They say things like, this job interview coming up, I'm going to nail it. I know all the answers. There's no question they can ask me that I don't know. I'm the qualified person for this. I have the educational background. I'm going to get this job. Negative self-talk says they're probably not going to hire me. I'm probably not going to get the job. And not surprisingly, that's the way often things turn out. I'm a big proponent of positive self-talk, especially under stress. I've got this. I figured out a solution for it. I'm going to get through this. This too shall pass. Whatever you say is part of positive self-talk. So the big movement these days in our world is on breath-based relaxation practice. So it's mindfulness meditation. If you Google mindfulness meditation, those two words will come up with a lot of stuff. I'll talk to you about a couple of apps on your phone. One is one called Headspace, which is probably the most popular breath-based relaxation app that there is. Another one called 10% Happier. And we'll talk about those in a short bit. But breath-based relaxation is, can you, and this is your prescription here from me, can you take some time in your day to find 5 minutes or 10 minutes at a safe place? Maybe it's sitting in your car at lunchtime with the air conditioning on or the heater on in a safe place. Maybe it's a place you can go in your office where you can shut the door for 5 or 10 minutes and just simply focus on your breathing, not on your bills or kids or spouse or partner or boss or customers or anything like that, but just focus on your breathing. Focus on those transitions in your breathing, the inhalation up to the little pause, then the exhalation for 5 minutes or 10. Well, one thing that I hear from people a lot is, I don't have time. I don't have time to do something like that, Steve. And also, the monkey mind chatters. It reminds us of bills and kids and spouse and partner and boss and coworkers and phone calls and emails and meetings all the time. One of the ways that we get control, and it's hard, I've been meditating for 30 years and it's still a factor for me, is getting control of the monkey mind by simply moving towards breath-based relaxation, where that's all you focus on for 5 minutes. What you discover is 5 minutes turns into 10, and 10 minutes turns into 20, maybe 20 minutes turns into a half hour, and then you're off to the races in terms of doing this in a daily, focused, planned way, where you get some little mini vacation inside your head for at least 30 minutes or at least 5 minutes. Think about this from the standpoint of a tech device. If you're talking to your IT colleagues and you say, something's wrong with my cell phone, or something's wrong with my laptop, or something's wrong with my tablet, or something's wrong with my desktop, they all say the same thing. When in doubt, reboot. And what the rebooting does, especially for breath-based relaxation, is it reboots your brain. It gets you back into a different sort of a perspective. It lowers your blood pressure. It drops your pulse rate. It calms you down. It gets you back into thinking more clearly. Maybe you come up with better solutions and ideas. Once you come out of this 5-minute or 10-minute exercise, if you can do it every day, that's what our conversation is going to be about. One thing to think about is what Tony Robbins says. Tony Robbins is the motivational speaker, and he says, what you're doing is what you want to do. So if you say to yourself, I want to go back to school and finish my education, you would drive over to the school, or you'd register online and you'd start taking classes. So when you say to yourself, I want to get back in shape, you'd drive over to the gym with your gym clothes and you'd sign up and you'd start working out. So what you really want to do is what you're doing. And I believe that myself when I look at my own situation and say, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. If I really wanted to do it, I'd go do it. So are you doing what you really want to do? Then the last one is, in terms of stress management and looking at your life, small changes can make a big difference. We're going to talk about diet and exercise and sleep. Small changes in your attitude, small changes in this breath-based meditation, this breath-based relaxation can make a huge difference over a span of time. And we'll talk about the values of those things. So stress is a stimulus. It's unavoidable. It exists to keep us alive. It's oftentimes a stimulus which is based on things like the weather, or based on pain, or based on emotional issues. It's based on an interaction with other organisms that you're standing next to at the Starbucks or in your office. It's an everyday fact of life. It's certainly not unavoidable. It's a fact of life, and if we didn't have stress, we'd be a big puddle of spinal cord and some teeth. So stress exist to keep us challenged and to keep us motivated, but too much of it, especially unmanaged, is not good for us. We know stress affects our heart rate, it affects our blood pressure, it affects our brain, It affects our mood. It affects how we eat, it affects how we sleep, it affects how we interact with people. And we'll talk about what we do to manage some of those things. But stress is certainly a result of comfort zone shifts. When you're taken out of your comfort zone, you're fearful, you're anxious, you're excited, you're happy. These things are all shifts in your comfort zone. And there's certainly positive ones, which are eustress, and negative ones, which are distress. And again, the challenge for us is what stresses you doesn't necessarily stress me, and vice versa. I stand in front of total strangers and talk all day. Last week I did a presentation in front of 500 people. Most folks would find standing in front of a crowd full of strangers to be stressful. It doesn't bother me. Some people would rather be in the coffin at the funeral than give the eulogy at the funeral, public speaking being one of the number one human fears. So for some of you, not a big deal. For others of you, that would be enough to put you off of your game. Very stressful for you. So it's a case-by-case basis. And stress affects us in 3 different ways. Biologically, it affects our hormones. It affects our body's response to things. You get a stomach ache, you get nervous, your blood pressure goes up, your pulse rate goes up for stressful situations. We have a lot of adrenaline and cortisol being dumped into your stomach. It's a cognitive issue. It impacts the way that you think. Sometimes you think sharply and very clearly. Other times you just can't remember what you're supposed to say. And other times you're really spot on and on top of your game. And the last one is it's an emotional response. It's related to feelings, how we feel in certain situations in terms of stress, positively or negatively, around other people and around situations where our emotions come into play. So from a negative standpoint, think about how stress affects you physiologically on your body. Neck, shoulders, lower back, that hairline area right above your collar, but kind of below your hairline where a lot of tension seems to go. People get tension headaches in their forehead, in their sinus cavities, things like that. Certainly low back, stiff neck, stiff shoulders, stomach. We have a lot of people in our culture with irritable bowel syndrome and upset stomach issues. How about teeth grinding? That's a favorite one for your dentist. They're always trying to sell you a mouth guard. Headaches and muscle aches, your energy level. We talked about sitting in the magic chair when you come home tired from work. And then your interactions with people can be affected by stress when you get a little short, a little snappish. Your patience starts to go out the window. That's when you need to catch yourself and say, stress is what's making me say or do these things. So we talked about the value of getting out of the magic chair, moving out of the magic chair when you feel like you just want to sit in there and crash all night. The magic chair is fun sometimes to watch a movie and to kick back and watch sports and that type of stuff. I can sit in the magic chair for 12 hours during football season. I try not to, but the idea is that the magic chair disconnects you from people, it isolates you from people, and it creates a sense of tension where you say, I don't want to be bothered, leave me alone, and then people take you at your word. So the magic chair can be a little bit dangerous sometimes. So think personally and professionally. We'll talk first professionally. Personally and professionally, what kind of things stress you? Could be the workload, your work schedule. You may have to come in early or stay late. When I was in the cops, I worked graveyard. That was a huge stressor for me. I'm not a guy that functions really well at 3:30 in the morning. Think about the workload that you have in terms of not enough time and not enough help and support and resources to get what you need done. How about your interactions with coworkers and taxpayers, customers, visitors, bosses, vendors, people that you interact with over the phone or face-to-face or out in the field? Think about it. You work in a harassing environment or a bullying environment in your organization. It'd be very stressful. Most people don't survive those events. They want to leave. It's not a safe and successful place to grow in your career. Certainly, feeling burnt out and being demotivated, not to want to do your work very effectively or work very hard is a big stressor. Oftentimes, stress is a result of us making poor decisions. Sometimes personal poor decisions, sometimes professional poor decisions. Think about the toxic environment that you work with in the workplace where people are rude and mean and not very civil to each other. And then think about the usual stressors for us personally and professionally: emails, calls, meetings. And then the last one is interesting, not only in your personal life, but in your professional life, where you can't say no. You can't say no to people like bosses or coworkers about things they want to volunteer you to do or projects they want you to pick up, or just add more stress to you. I think one stress management tool is your ability to say, I can't do it. And you don't put your career at risk, but think about those times where you just say, I'm not able to do what you're asking me to do. You've got to find somebody else. And then personally, the issue for stressors in people's personal lives, pretty common across the board: family and in-law conflicts, spouse or partner conflicts, kids, arguments, money and bills, car and home repairs, especially expensive stuff you don't anticipate. Certainly illness for yourself or illness or pain in other family members is very stressful for us. But think about toxic friendships. Think about people that you don't want to talk to when you see their name pop up on your phone screen. Think about people that you have to engage with on the holidays or around other times because they're relatives. And I think one of the cooler parts of being an adult is you can get rid of people that are toxic in your life. And you can say, you know, I had to put up with you when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, I don't have to hang around my uncle or this person that I can't stand for my family. And then we make better decisions about the people in our lives that we engage with, so they don't, if they cause us stress, if they're toxic, we get rid of them. And then also depression, of which 10% of the adult population takes depression medication, which is fine as long as they don't mix it with alcohol or try to manage their medications on or off without doctor supervision. We see a lot more depression in our population. And depression is typically anger turned inward. And anger towards yourself or other people turned inward is oftentimes a driver for depression. So that can certainly be a stressor. It affects your energy level, your mood, and your interactions with people. So from a personal and professional perspective, one of the things that we have an advantage oftentimes in many organizations is the concept of Employee Assistance Program, or EAP. If you work in an organization that has an EAP, that's a huge benefit to you, and we're going to talk about it for a second. And the second part is, if you don't have an employee assistance program, counseling service inside your organization, you probably have some sort of type of medical benefits that you can get access to a counseling system or a program through your doctor or through the program that you're involved with, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Kaiser, things like that. So look at all the issues and subjects that EAP covers. Lots of things that you may not have thought about, like pet loss and gambling, financial, legal, marital, blended families, sick kids, Alzheimer's in your parents, cancer, that type of thing, all covered by EAP. I've been to EAP myself. I value what they have done for me. I make lots of referrals in my coaching programs with employees that have off-the-job or on-the-job issues. Employee assistance program counselors can help with professional stressors, problems and interactions you're having at work, and also personal stressors as well. So why don't people go? Why don't they use employee assistance program services, especially men? There's a stigma about reaching out for help, and there's a fear that there's going to be some type of report that's going to be given to their boss, or people are going to find out. They don't think it's confidential, which it is. A lot of people are fearful that they're going to be changed out of their assignment and taken away their duties, and they say, we're going to put you over here to count the paper clips because there's something wrong with you. And then oftentimes people don't know about the resource itself. I talk to lots of employees in training programs, and they don't understand EAP, how it works, and oftentimes a small percentage of them don't even know that it exists. So I'm trying to remind you, if you do know about it, great. And if you thought about using it, you can go to EAP counselor with your spouse or partner or your kids, or you can send your kids or alone, or your spouse or partner alone. It's all a benefit that's part of your medical benefits as part of being an employee. So I encourage you to think about, if you're under personal and professional stress, it is a resource. And we have other resources besides EAP, but at least at a professional level, that's one of the primary ones. So if you don't have EAP or don't feel comfortable with that resource, think about how else may be possible for you in terms of stress management. A doctor can give you a referral to a healthcare provider in mental health services or counseling. You can get a referral from one of your good friends who's used counseling himself or herself. If you're a member of your church, you may be able to get pastoral counseling. There's lots of online therapy programs now that are done by Skype, which I think is very interesting. And there's also support groups, whether it's pet loss or substance abuse or the loss of a spouse or something like that, or a child. There's lots of support groups that exist to help you cope with the personal and professional stressors that we all face. So I want you to think about, in terms of the ultimate response to stress management, is reaching out for help. So here's where we are at the sort of crossroads of our conversation, which is this acronym BREADS: breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep. I'll talk about each of these kind of in a little bit of an overview, and then I want to get us ready for a little bit of a relaxation exercise at the end of our conversation, and also to answer some questions for you, if you have any. And if you have questions and I don't get to them, because as usual, I've fallen in love with the sound of my own voice, certainly you can email me, or you can email the good folks at Aspen, and I'll get those and answer them as well by email. But think about how each of these 6 characteristics here, breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, diet, and sleep, think about how each of these are interrelated, and they are connected to each other in really sort of obvious ways. The better you exercise, the easier it is for you to sleep. The better you eat, the easier it is for you to exercise, and also helps your sleep. Your attitude affects your relaxation state. Breathing affects how you relax. Breathing affects your exercise approach. Breathing can even affect your attitude. Deep breaths, oftentimes under stress, can get your head back in the game. So think about all these 6 characteristics as all connected and intertwined with each other. One is not more important than the other. I mean, off the record, if I had to choose one that's probably the most important, I would say the focus on relaxation exercise. 5 to 10 minutes a day is at least once per day that you could find some place to reboot the mechanism would probably be my first choice. But all of these 6 have a connection to each other, and they're all vigorously important in terms of your managing stress. If you take nothing from our time together today, other than this tool here, you'll be ahead of the game of most folks that don't know what it's all about. So breathing, obviously, we've been doing it for quite a long time. I'm not going to tell you how to breathe. I'm just going to say that when it comes to breathing, we look at the benefits that we see in things like yoga, prana breathing. We see it in mindfulness meditation. And again, I'm going to talk about the 2 apps that I think are the best for that for your phone. One is Headspace, and the other is 10% Happier. We see breathing is used in self-hypnosis. We see breathing used in something called guided imagery, which we use oftentimes for pain patients or cancer patients or people that want to just sort of move themselves to their own private getaway place. And then this concept of focused relaxation, which is the private getaway place, or your ability to just shut your eyes for 5 to 10 minutes and kind of reboot the mechanism and calm down the monkey mind. Again, when it comes to breathing, you look at these transitions and you say, I inhale, there's a teeny little fraction of a second pause, a little transition, a little sort of time to spend just in your own head, and then we exhale. Then there's a little teeny transition, a little rest period, and then you start the inhale again. If you want to, focus on the pauses. One other way that people that teach mindfulness meditation and breathing relaxation is to ask you to just count your breaths. So you could start at 1 and go to 100 and count for 100 breaths, or start at 100 and count down to 1 and just count maybe the exhales only, something like that. What you're trying to do with this breathing, relaxation sort of counting type of thing is distract your mind, distract your brain from all the 50,000 things that we're thinking about at any one moment in time, emails, kids, bills, whatever it happens to be, boss, and get yourself focused on dropping your pulse rate, dropping your blood pressure, lowering your sort of defenses against all the things that are going on in the world in a safe place, and being able to kind of reboot the mechanism in a kind of a whole body way. When you think about breathing as a whole body exercise, I mean, top of your head down to the bottoms of your toes, it really focuses on sort of changing your physiological state. And if we're under stress, it's very difficult to breathe slowly. So one of the sort of paradoxes of stress management is the slower and deeper you can make your breathing, the less likely you're going to have physical anxiety, because it's just not possible. You can't keep your pulse rate up if you're breathing very slowly. You can't keep your blood pressure up if you're breathing very slowly. If you can slow down your breath by taking longer, deeper breaths and focus on those things, you're going to get an obvious benefit in terms of your whole physiological state. Then we think about relaxation. Find a place to do breath-based relaxation. Again, 5 minutes may be fine. 10 minutes would be awesome. 20 minutes if you're a meditating pro in a place that's safe or comfortable or quiet each day. A long time ago, I was doing a program for the police department in San Diego, and there was a woman, I was teaching stress management for cops, and there was a woman there who was teaching yoga. And she started off by saying, let's just sit quietly and for 1 whole minute, just focus on yourself. Just 1 minute, close your eyes, slow down your breathing and focus on yourself. So we all closed our eyes, and for 1 minute, we were going along sort of focusing on our breathing, and we heard sobbing. And at the end of the exercise, we looked over, and there was a woman, she was crying. And the yoga instructor said, what happened? What's the matter? And she said, I always take care of everybody else. I always take care of my family and my boss and my coworkers. Nobody ever gave me permission to take care of myself. And it was an emotional experience for her. And I thought, wow, that's tough. When you think about all the demands that you have, all the things that are going on in your personal and professional life, is it easy to see that yourself can be on the list of about number 8 instead of being number 1? And I started a long time ago thinking about the value, especially as I get older, of my health. I can't take care of my family. I can't take care of my professional responsibilities if I'm not healthy. So giving yourself permission at least once a day to take care of yourself is a critical factor in this. And we talk about, people discuss with me all the time, Steve, I don't have 10 minutes. I'm busy all the time. And one thing I say is stop so much social media or stop watching so much TV. The national average for television watching in the United States is still about 4 hours a day. It used to be higher, but thanks to Facebook and everything else, I say, okay, Take less time for Facebook, take less time for TV. If you do the relaxation at the end of your day when you're home, you can even do it before you go to bed. That's fine. Just choose 10 minutes that you block out every day at some point in time to say, that's what I'm going to do. So we think about the benefits of this breath-based meditation, this breath-based relaxation. You don't have to call it meditation if you don't want to. It's not about gurus and yoga and India and all that kind of stuff. It's about meditation, a breath-based approach. And what we see is blood pressure, pulse rate goes down. Good for your metabolism. It slows things down. It helps you boost your oxygen levels, and it improves your when you're exhaling CO2, you get a boost to your immune system. We can't say that it cures cancer, but it certainly helps in fighting off diseases, especially things that are autoimmune kind of an approach. And also it really does a lot to stimulate your anti-aging functions. And we look at the brainwave activity in EEGs or in MRIs of people that are meditators, and we see healthier brain pathways, more neural pathways are being created. Actually, they're building on brain cells with these new neural pathways as opposed to people that don't do this. So there is zero disadvantage for this approach and plenty of advantage. In 1998, I ran the marathon in San Diego. That was the worst 5 hours of my life. I think Oprah ran faster than I did, and I was in really good shape. The race started, it was 82 degrees. I went downhill from there. I ran a bunch of half marathons and triathlons, and it was really sort of stressful doing that kind of training, and the pain and injury and problems with my hip, which I have to have replaced and all that, was kind of a drag. So what we figured out kind of a long time ago is that walking tends to be the best exercise for everybody, regardless of your age and your health and your physical strength and your fitness level. Walking really seems to be the best beneficial exercise that we have. I have a treadmill, which I try to use every day. I have one of those wrist counters that Garmin that counts my number of steps. I try to get to 10,000 every single day if I can. But walking 3 to 5 days a week by yourself, with your dog, with a colleague, with a coworker, with somebody in your family, in a safe place, or around the track, or around on the treadmill, is an awesome way to improve your fitness. And also it burns some energy, so it helps you sleep, and also I think makes you a little bit more mindful about your diet. Then we talk about attitude. Breathing, relaxation, exercise, attitude, relentlessly positive. Always finding the good in what situation that you see. What's the Zen moment? What's good about the particular situation, even if it doesn't feel all that great at the time? What's good about the fact that my boss is angry and yelling at me? Well, I'm still being paid to be here. I'm not going to get fired. This too shall pass, et cetera, et cetera. And then focusing on not only attitude, relentlessly positive, but negative self-talk. Focusing on stopping negative self-talk. I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I'm this, I'm that. Stop saying those things which your mind and body hears, and give yourself positive affirmations. I've got this, I can figure it out, this too shall pass, I'm gonna get help, I'm not gonna, the consequences of what's happening right now are not life-threatening, it's gonna be okay. Then diet. Easy sometimes to think about all the foods that we shouldn't be eating as opposed to the ones we should. Probably the worst thing to drink in the morning, besides probably scotch, would be orange juice. Think about the acid in your stomach, and think about the sugar, which is not great for your empty stomach. The first thing you should be drinking in the morning, I know this probably sounds like heresy to your coffee people, is water. Think about how we have been asleep for 6 to 7 hours and we're a little bit dehydrated. You can tell that by the color of your urine in the morning is usually pretty yellow. We need more fluids, more water early on. So the first thing you should be drinking in the morning before you get to coffee is water. If you could have 2 glasses of water before you jump into your coffee routine, that's probably the best. Protein early, carbs in the midday, go to bed a little bit hungry tends to be the best approach for weight management. If you can keep your diet pretty healthy for 5 to 6 good days and then have a nice cheat day on the weekend where you eat some ice cream covered with Snickers bars, that's cool. Just don't do it more than 1 cheat day a week. And then think about how you need to moderate just for your sleep benefits and your exercise benefits and your health benefits, things like caffeine, alcohol, fats, and sugars. And we talk about all the stuff that, that puts us into obesity or puts us into a pre-diabetic state. It's typically, our use of sugar, our use of alcohol. Caffeine, again, really affects your sleep. It affects your thought processes in a positive way in terms of giving you energy, but oftentimes it can keep you awake. And so think about how you can make small changes in your diet. I don't expect you to just eat, the tops of flowers all day long, but think about how you can make small changes in your diet to make a positive impact on the things that are the most likely to cause you the most harm, which could be typically caffeine, alcohol, fats, and sugars. And then the last one, and probably the most difficult to sort of manage, is sleep. And we sleep in 90-minute cycles, meaning that there are rises and falls in our sleep brainwave activity. Delta brainwave activity is dead asleep. Then there's theta brainwave activity, which is a little bit more awake, which is where you dream. And then there's the alpha state, where you're sort of half awake and half asleep. You're laying in bed just before you sort of pass out. That's half awake, half asleep. And then that's the alpha state. And then there is the beta state, which is wide awake. So hopefully we're all in the beta state right now. But when you think about these 90-minute cycles, it's sort of interesting to say, if I wake up after 4 hours of sleep and I feel pretty good, or I wake up after 8 hours of sleep and I feel, super groggy, how did that happen? Well, you woke up in the 4-hour version, you woke up at the end of a 90-minute cycle. In the 8-hour version, you woke up in the middle of a 90-minute cycle. So one of the ways to focus on better sleep is to count backwards from when you absolutely must wake up and get out of bed in 90-minute chunks. So you say, I go to bed at 11, 12:30, 2, 3:30, 5, 6:30. If I get up at 6:30, the chances are more likely that I'm going to wake up at the end of a 90-minute cycle than during the middle of one. So 30 minutes waking up in either direction can make a big difference in how you feel groggy or alert when you get out of bed. If you fall asleep pretty quickly when you go to bed, program yourself to go to sleep and wake up at the end of the 90-minute cycle, depending on what time you got to get up. Think about the pre-sleep rituals that we have. It could be taking a shower, reading a book. It could be having a very quiet room, some white noise perhaps, some fans or those little machines that make white noise. You want the room as quiet and cool and dark and as peaceful as possible. Use the bedroom what it was designed for, not arguing with your spouse, not screaming at your kids. Use the bedroom what it was supposed to be designed for, and make it a place of peace. I always tell couples, if you're going to argue, go out to the kitchen. Don't scream and yell in the bedroom. It's supposed to be a comfortable, peaceful place to be. And also think about how our exposure to blue light makes it difficult for us to sleep. And the biggest blue light exposure we get is through our cell phones and tablets. So if you have to look at your cell phone or tablet before you go to sleep, try to do it within 30 minutes to an hour before you go to sleep, and turn the brightness way, way down. That exposure to blue light that comes off these devices wants us to get up. Be careful with pills. Not too much on especially things like Ambien, which can be really habit forming. But be careful with even over-the-counter stuff like the sleep medications and things like that. Be careful with not getting too attached to those things. Don't worry about occasional insomnia. Everybody has it. So back to the idea of the cell phone, especially before bed, 30 minutes to an hour of not looking at the phone or the tablet and cutting down this exposure to blue light. Sometimes the technology of our phones just makes us miserable. Another email, another text, another phone call we have to handle. Sometimes just putting that thing aside or leaving it in the other room and let it charge up on its own, 2 rooms over, can be kind of peaceful, and also is a way to keep you from being sort of attached to your technology all the time. So I do like these 2 apps for relaxation quite a lot. One is Headspace. It's done by a British guy named Andy Puddicombe. He used to be a Buddhist monk. He came back to California. He's in Santa Monica. He runs probably the most popular web-based program in the world. Headspace has got, 20 million people that use it. I like it a lot. There's a free version, which he gives you 10 free 10-minute breath-based meditations for free. And then my friend Dan Harris, who is the anchor for ABC News Nightline and also the weekend anchor of ABC News, has a website called 10% Happier. And he wrote a couple books about this concept of being 10% happier because of meditation. He was a very skeptical guy and he jumped on board. So I highly recommend Headspace and 10% Happier as some great apps for your phone. So one of the issues we'll talk about before we wrap up is anger. And one of the things that we focus on with stress management is helping you master your anger. Instead, I don't use the phrase management because I don't think it's possible to manage your anger. I think it's something that we have to master because management means it's sort of held at bay. Mastery means we don't let it affect our lives. And we see people with anger issue in jail. We see people with anger issue in divorce court. We see people with anger issues lose their jobs. So anger for me is an emotion that has to be managed. We do that by breathing. We do it by keeping our voices down, by not shouting, making a conscious choice not to do that. We do it by pausing. Someone says something provocative or designed to push our buttons, we take a little pause, which in brain time is 1,000,000 years. 1 second is like 1,000,000 years in brain time before we answer. We agree to disagree with people. We stop our desire to be right all the time. And we think about, which many people who have anger problems don't, we think about the consequences of our anger sooner. If I say or do this, it's going to ruin my relationship with my spouse for the next 48 hours. If I say or do this, it's going to wound one of my kids. If I say or do this, it's going to really make my boss or coworkers quite angry. So I got to think about the consequences of anger before I jump into these things. Recognize what your hot buttons are. It could be your appearance or something in your personality that people tend to key in on, and don't let them push your hot buttons. And then the last one, it's easy sometimes to get stuck in an anger situation where you have to have the last word, you have to yell and scream. Just leave, just walk out of the room, hang up the phone, move on. So one more thing to talk about, the 3 T's. We have tough situations in our lives. Some things can be really affected by our families and the dynamics. People are sick or pass away, and it can be really quite traumatizing and traumatic for people. We talk about people's exposure to traumatic events, a car accident, a death in the family, something like that, in 3 different ways. One is we use the passage of time to minimize the intensity of that event. So it seems horrible today, but in 6 months it will be much less horrible. In a year we won't remember it unless it's super important, like the death of a spouse or something. And then talking with people that we care about and who care about us. It could be pastoral counseling or EAP or a psychologist or a coworker or that you care and trust, your best friend. My best friend and I have been best friends since we were 7 years old. I'm 56, that's a long time. I can talk to him about anything, anytime, day or night. And the passage of time and talking with people who support and care about you has tremendous benefit. And then the last one is thought stopping. Thought stopping is where you make a conscious choice to say to yourself, here comes that thought which is going to upset me. I'm going to put up a literal stop sign in my head that says stop, no more. And so you see this thought, this idea, this emotion come in, and it runs into this stop sign, and you say, it's not going to pass. It's not going to come into my head. So think about the actual literal value of putting a stop sign inside your head that says, here it comes. This emotion, this issue, this thing that makes me angry or fearful or afraid, or it reminds me of this traumatic situation that I had, it's not coming forward. I use an actual physical stop sign inside my head that says enough. Think about where we get this thought stopping if a song ever gets stuck in your head. Same thing, you get a song stuck in your head and you can't get out of your head while you're trying to sleep or something going on. You can use this idea of the stop sign as a symbolic gesture that says no more. So last little thing here, wellness. Think about in your organization, especially if you have control over some of these things or you have input with HR or with your bosses or other people or a group of folks that you can talk about. What can we do to provide a wellness sense in our organization? We bring in Health Day, which is a local hospital or a health community group comes in and does cholesterol and blood pressure checks and things for our folks. We provide gym memberships. We have on-site facilities. We have nap rooms or meditation rooms or yoga rooms in our organizations. We do job sharing. We allow telecommuting for people, especially where folks don't have to be in the office all the time. We have flex time, where if you want to come in at 10 because your child care is using leave at 6 and things like that. We help people stop smoking. We have wellness programs throughout our employee benefits. We offer sabbaticals, which is a really cool idea certainly in the academic circles, but can we have sabbaticals for people and organizations after a span of time? We offer people mental health days, which is, you don't have to take this as a sick day. Just take a day off if you want to take a day off. And then some people in organizations say no emails before or after dark. So we're not doing stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning like they tend to do in Silicon Valley, where there's a sense of there's a time to keep working and a time to stop. So a couple things here. Think about the color that you would associate with relaxation. Think about the private getaway place. Think about a word that you can associate or connect or make connected to relaxation. And then think about a way to do a very small gesture, which is touch your thumb and first finger together on either hand anytime you want to relax yourself. Start to get into the habit, especially if you can do this breath-based relaxation just for 10 minutes a day. Keep your thumb and first finger touching. Anytime you need to, anytime you want to, touch your thumb and first finger together gives you a sense of this relaxation. Start by relaxing yourself from your head to your toe. Move from your forehead across your face, down over your shoulders, down your back, around your chest, over your thighs, etc., down to your toes, and do this head to toe muscle relaxation. Think about this private getaway place where you can be comfortable, safe, peaceful. Think about a color that you associate with relaxation. So when you see this color, it reminds you to relax. Think about touching your thumb and first finger together. And if it works for you, think of a word that you associate with relaxation. So for just a second, focus on this private getaway place here that I've shown you here. It's kind of peaceful. Think about if you can just close your eyes for just a moment. Start with one deep breath. And at the end of that deep breath, just focus on the pause, that little transition before you breathe in or breathe out again. Instantly, what you see is you drop your blood pressure, drop your pulse rate, and starts to feel a little peaceful. You may still have the monkey mind, the ideas and things that come and go. Just note them, see here they come, and let them go. Inside this private getaway place is where we think about the color that we associate with relaxation. Inside this private getaway place, we think about touching our thumb and first finger together on either hand. And if you want to deepen your sense of relaxation, you can certainly count. Count the number of exhales, count the number of inhales, count from 100 down to 1, or from 1 to 100. I'll give you just a second to come back to full attention and full alert, but think about the tools that we've talked about, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Steve. So while everybody's coming back to full alertness, I hope you got a lot out of that presentation. We do have a question from one of our participants that has an app called Calm, C-A-L-M. Is this app comparable to other apps that you described in your webinar, or should they buy something different?
I don't know that one, but if it sounds like it works for you, Calm is a great phrase. So if it works for you, that one seems useful. I just like Headspace and 10% Happier because I've had the most success with them personally, but I like them.
Okay, and we're getting quite a few people that are giving great feedback about an excellent presentation, but we don't have any other questions. I think you did a great job of answering most of the questions during the webinar. So I'm just going to close today and thank everyone for attending today's webinar presented by Heffernan. We will send information by email with instructions on how to access a copy of the presentation on our website. And thank you, Dr. Steve Albrecht, for your time and expertise today. We hope all of the attendees found today's webinar to be a valuable use of your time. Be sure to join us on March 19th for a workers' compensation update. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thanks, everybody.